We're going to be creating a photo slideshow using Flash, and we want our photos to be able to transform and fade. But before we do that, we need to open Photoshop and we need to resize them so that they fit our stage better. Remember, our stage size, default stage size, is 550 in width by 400 in height. So I've got 4 images here, and I'm just going to go up here to the image menu, image size, and notice that this one, the width is bigger than the height. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the width of the stage, which is 550. However, if I do that, then the height is smaller than the stage. So I'm going to change that and make it 400. We want one or the other to make sure that they set one or the other to make sure that neither one of them are smaller than the stage, but we want to get them close to the stage size. So I'm going to get that. I'm going to click OK, and then I will do a file, save as. I'm going to go ahead and save it as a JPEG, and I have a red folder that I'm saving these in. And then I can go to the next one, same thing. Image size, 550. Whoops, that's too small, so I will change that to 400. And I will save it. Oop. And then go to the next one. Again, image size. You're going to have 4 photos here. Whoops. You're going to have 4 photos in your photo slideshow, and image size, I'll go ahead and do that one, 400. Okay. All right, so once I have them all saved from Photoshop, I can quit Photoshop. I don't need it open any longer. Okay, no, I don't need to save it. Now that you have your photos resized, you're going to go into Flash and start a new file. This time we're going to put on ActionScript 2.0, and I'll explain why when we get to that point. We're keeping our stage size at the default size, 550 by 400, but we're going to change the frame rate to 20. And the first thing that we want to do is we want to go ahead and import to the library the 4 photos that we resized. I actually resized more than 4, and I'm going to pick 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Click open, and here they are in the library. Now, these are, at this point in time, if you look at the symbols and if you scroll to the right and see what type they are, you can see that they are simply bitmaps, okay, which kind of is useless to us when we want to animate. But we'll start off by going ahead and dragging them to the desktop, or not to the desktop, to the stage, and while they're there, they're still selected. We're going to use our Align panel to make sure that Align to Stage is checked, and we're going to align horizontal and align vertical center. Okay? Now, if we look at that, we can see that the stage is in the middle and it's completely covered on each one of them. Okay? Notice how I click on that. Sometimes people do that on accident and they're like, oh, where'd my stuff go? That's what happens right there. All right, now the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to distribute these to their own layer, because as you know, in order to make something animate, they have to have their own layer. So I'm going to control click on the top photo, and I still have all of them selected, and I'm going to choose distribute to layers. Now you see that each layer is actually named what the photo was called, and the original layer can be deleted because we don't need that right now. Now what we're going to do is we're going to start with each image, or sorry, with the top one, and I'm going to start with my U of H one first, go Cougs, and I am going to select it and I'm going to convert it to a symbol. Now I'm going to call it U of H, but I want to make the type movie clip Even though I'm not animating it on its own timeline, there are some properties that you can only do to a movie clip and can't do to a graphic. So that's why it's going to be a movie clip. And I'm going to click OK. And then I can lock and hide, and I can go to the next layer, and I can do the same thing. Modify, convert to symbol. This one was my starburst. And it's a movie clip, center registration, click OK. And you can see them showing up here in the library. I'll lock and hide and go to the next one and modify, convert to symbol, roses, and then the final one I will modify, convert to symbol, and these will be my bubbles. And I'll click OK. All right, now here are all my movie clips. They're all movie clips now on my timeline. I do actually want to go ahead and hide all of my layers except for the top one. The top one is the one I want to start with. This is the image that I want to come first in my slideshow. You can rearrange these in any manner that you want. If you want something to come first, just simply drag the layers, just like you did in Photoshop. All right, so I'm going to start with the U of H one, and I am going to create a motion tween. And it puts one in that lasts for 1 second. I want it to last longer than that. I want each photo to be there for 4 seconds. So I want to put my cursor out here on frame 80 and hit F5 so that I insert frames and make it last that long. That's all I'm doing now, is making it last for 4 seconds. When I slide my playhead back to 1, you notice that there's already a keyframe there. There's not one anywhere else. So I'm starting here on frame 1. And if I look at my properties panel, I see some stuff there, but it's not the right things that I want. But if I click on my image, notice how the properties change. And there's actually 2 different properties that we want to change, and it is filters and color effect. And so what we want to do, I'm going to go ahead and start on the filters first. I'm going to come down here to the bottom, and I'm going to choose Add Filter, and I want there to be a blur on it. Now, by default, it automatically puts 5 pixels of blur on the X and Y axis. You know, X goes across, Y is up and down. So they're both different types of blur. This lock will, if it's solid, when you change one, it'll automatically change the other. But if you have them broken, then you have to type it in both. Okay? So we want the blur to be 100 pixels on both the X and the Y axis. Now, it makes it pretty unintelligible. You can't really tell what it is. And we're going to make it even more so, because now we're going to put in a color effect. And the style of the color effect is going to be alpha. And we're going to set our alpha down at 0. Notice this slider, how it goes all the way up to 100. You can see it. Then it becomes a little more see-through, and then it's totally invisible. Okay? All you can see is the outline, knowing that there is, in fact, an object on the stage here. All right, now that it's started off, we have it started the way we want, we can go to the next step. So move your playhead over frame 20. Now, it does, like I said, it looks like nothing's there, but we can still see the outline, the boundary of that symbol. So if I click on the stage where that symbol is, I get my effects back. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is I want to change the alpha back to 100, and you notice that it immediately places a keyframe there. And I want to change my blur to 0. That way my image is fully visible on frame 20. And you can see that it fades in, and there it is. And now I can go to frame 60. Sorry, frame 60. And I want it to be fully visible from 20 to 60. That's 40 keyframes, okay? Or 40 frames, rather. 2 seconds of time, it's fully visible. Now I can hit F6 because I want to keep it exactly like it is. And then when I move my playhead to 80, now I can click on the image and I can change, once again, the blur to 100 pixels and the alpha to 0. So if I click return to play this animation, it fades in, it stays, and it fades out. Okay, so we got 1 second of fade in, 2 seconds of visibility, 1 second fade out. And basically we're going to repeat this on every single photo. All right, so this layer is now finished. So I'm going to go ahead and lock it. And I want to unhide and unlock the second layer, which is the starburst. Okay, and actually I'm going to hide that top layer too. And here it is. Now, if we want that the U of H to fade in and fade out, right here at frame 60 is where we want our next one to be invisible and then fade in as the one above it is fading out. Okay, so they're going to overlap for a second while one fades in and the other fades out. So right now this keyframe is here at 1. I just want to click to select it and then drag it to frame 60. Now, when I did that, notice that it actually removed the image from frame 1. There's nothing there. That circle with the hole in it means there's an empty keyframe. Okay, our keyframe with anything in it now starts on 60. So I will create a motion tween. Okay, and we know that it needs to last 80 frames. So 60 plus 80 is 140, and I will F5 to insert frames. That just means it's going to last that long. Okay, so as I go back to 60, I'm going to repeat the same steps that I did there. Okay, I'm going to add a filter of blur, and I'm going to make it 100 pixels on both axes, and I'm going to apply an alpha color effect, making it 0. And then if I move my playhead over 80, that's where I can click on it and I can make it fully visible and have no filter, or have no blur filter. Now if I unhide it, look how it fades right there. Okay, so it's like if you've ever used PowerPoint and you have the transitions, this is like a transition, how it fades from one to the other. Okay, now we know it needs to be there for 2 more seconds. So there's 1 second, there's 2 seconds. So on 120, we can insert a keyframe with an F6. It's fully visible for 2. And then between 120 and 140, it can fade out again. Okay, now that one is completed. Okay, and we always want to do a little scrub of the playhead so we can make sure everything works the way that it should. We can lock it and we can go to the next layer. Okay, same thing here. We want this third one to start at 120, which is where the other one starts to fade out. So I can put a motion tween on. I can add 80 keyframes, or 80 frames, so 120 plus 80 is 200. So I'll F5. Back on 120, I will add a blur filter. I will change the alpha to 0. And then I will come to 140, and that's where we want it to start to be visible. So I'll change that. It's going to still be visible at 180. So I'm going to hit F6. And then at 200, I want it to be invisible and completely blurred again. Okay, and then as I move the scrubber, I can see that it's working. Okay, so I'll lock that layer and I'll go to my final layer. And this one, we may have to move it a couple of times because of how far it has to go. It's starting on 180. Put on a motion tween. And 180 plus 80 is 260. So I will F5. And then I'll go back to 180. And I need to hide that real quick. I need to add my filter, my blur filter, and my alpha, and it's 0. And then I need to click on the image, and I want to make it fully visible. Okay, so I can see that it's fading in. Then it's going to be visible until 240, so I'm going to hit F6. And then at 260 is when I want it to fade out again. Okay, so now I have 4 layers done, and if I hit Command Return, we can see the slideshow, and we can double check our work to make sure that we faded things where they were supposed to be, and it looks like we did. Now, the only thing is notice here at the very end, okay, after the bubbles, you notice it goes white. That's because it's starting over again. And we can put in a special action script to make it not have that white part. Okay, so go to the next video to do that.